Okay, just a quick one on output gaps. I realised this one was missing in the macro walkthrough. So, what's an output gap? An output gap is very simple. It's the idea that the actual level of GDP differs from potential GDP, which sounds like a lot of big words, yeah. But all we're really saying is that output is either above or below potential. So below potential, seems pretty straightforward. It just means there's some unemployment, and that's really easy to show on a Keynesian ADAS curve, where if we're going to say that's long run aggregate supply, we know that's real GDP down here. That's the potential of the economy. So if the economy's here at AD1 and output's at Y1, then we have what's called a negative output gap here. We don't have enough output to employ everybody. And as a result, what we're going to find is that there are unemployed resources. And that's what's meant by a negative output gap. Sometimes you can see that viewed over time. So if that's time over there, and that's real GDP here, we know that over time the potential of the economy tends to rise by about, for the UK, 2% a year. 2% a year. That's trend growth. It's reflected by the increase in long run aggregate supply, or it's the increase in a PPF in some sense. I know there are some thoughts you may be having on that in a minute in the case of positive output gaps. But what we're saying then is that over time there is an economic cycle. That's actual GDP there. And what we're saying is that sometimes we deviate from the trend growth. So here again, that distance there, kind of XY, the economy is below its potential, is the same as that distance there, XY. We're saying that we are below economic potential. So what does it mean to say that we're above economic potential? That seems a bit weird. And all we really mean is just a question of how you define economic potential. We've looked before at the Nehru, and we said that if you look at it from a neoclassical perspective, they know that in the long run, again, that's real GDP, that's the price level, we know that in the long run, the economy is going to self-stabilise back to the Nehru. So or a different way of looking at that is to say that's the actual PPF for an economy. Here's, say, capital goods and consumer goods. But what we're saying is that there is like a shadow PPF. That's as close as you can get to full employment without inflation. Same argument here, that actual full employment might be over there. So if you've got your short run aggregate supply there and you've got aggregate demand there, all we're saying is that if aggregate demand was suddenly to increase to AD2, then in the short term we would have gone past capacity. We would now be operating in this kind of inflationary zone here, and we'd have what's now called a positive output gap. We have more output than we can really cope with without inflation. And that's all those two concepts really mean. That if you have a negative output gap, GDP is below potential. If you have a positive output gap, then GDP is above potential. And if you're an interventionist style government, if you're following sort of Keynesian approach, then you may want to close those output gaps. So in the case of a positive output gap here, you might want to reduce aggregate demand by, say, increasing interest rates. But back in the situation over here where we said that the economy is below potential, then what you might want to do is to increase aggregate demand by cutting interest rates or using expansionary fiscal policy, increasing government spending, cutting taxes and so on, to return the economy to its kind of fully employed state, depending on how you define full employment. And that's it.